Welcome, Munciana Courtside, Season 7, Show 5. We're still rolling.
Season's still rolling.
Show's still going. No COVIDs on the show. No quarantines for our show. Knock on wood. We're still here. Season's slowly but surely kicking in. Let's get on it.
Yep. Last week we talked about a couple good matches. Crown Point really starting to hit the stride. Doing a lot of good things up there. They sweep Portage on Thursday night last week.
Well, Crown Point had that one hiccup weekend. It's really weird. The teams up north have had had an opportunity to play a lot of games. Crown Point, for instance, is 16-2, and Dwinger's like 3-0.
Munster's 19-2.
Munster's 19-2, and McCutcheon's played 4 matches. It's insane. I know that Yorktown is starting to get moving in the right direction. Still haven't got double-digit games in, but it is really unique to see people getting it going. But Crown Point is on a roll. Yep. At 16-2, that's considered a roll.
Yep. And then we also had Saturday last week, the invite that everybody at least got to win. Everybody beat everybody. Newcastle, for some reason, only played 3 matches. They went 2-1 that. They didn't play Silver Creek. Silver Creek went 1-2. And then Brownsburg, Penn, and Fishers all go 2-2. Kind of a crazy everybody beat everybody.
Well, I think that's the inconsistency invite.
Yep.
Every match in there was up and down and all over the place, and all of these teams are up and down. Every one of those teams you just mentioned, and Silver Creek playing up and out of their neighborhood a little bit.
Yep.
But Silver Creek has a tough schedule, and they're a good team. Obviously, they beat a good Brownsburg team. But, you look at it, none of these teams are capable still of putting together 25 consecutive good points or 3 consecutive good sets. No one can play harder, longer yet.
Yep.
And that was evident in the Newcastle invite.
Yeah. And then Tuesday night, actually last night, Yorktown played Newcastle, and Newcastle lost in 4.
Big fluctuation in that match. Couple really close sets early. Newcastle forces it 4, and set 4, Yorktown blows their doors off. And a lot of people, and I know you did, you called it in 4 though, but your gut told you more like 3.
Yep, it did.
And a lot of people really thought, including I thought that Yorktown would come out and just pound on them. But Newcastle, there's an awful lot of pride there. Shaftmaster, great pride athlete. Cox, great pride. Smith, great pride. Wilkerson, great pride. A lot of kids with great pride. And, Yorktown did what they do. They just wore them down.
Yep.
And when your errors start to mount up, that's when Yorktown rolls on you. And that's what happened in set 4. But Newcastle's got a shot at them.
Yeah.
If you're going to lose the first one, and so they've got that out of their system. Let's see what the rest of the season holds.
Yeah. And it sounded like, for the most part, Layla Smith just dominated the middle of the court when they could get the ball in ball control. So if that ball control picks up a little bit, then they're cruising.
Their ball control's got to pick up a lot of it.
Yep.
When you're talking about Newcastle, they've got to have Layla Smith as their go-to, as the big gun in the middle of the floor, and they can't use her right now. I would argue that Newcastle, one of probably 3, maybe top 3 teams in the state in regards to third contact, meaning attacking, hitting the ball. But right now, they're not in the top 50 teams in the state in first and second contacts, which are pass and set. If your first and second contacts are struggling, that's bad math, and it's not giving Newcastle really the opportunity to showcase some of its talents.
Yeah.
If they can get that settled, they got a shot to go back to the state championship. If they don't, they probably don't get out of sectionals.
Yeah. Go ahead and get into our next. Got some good ones coming up. Saturday, we talked about a really great little invite.
Yeah.
Josh, Sarah, those guys remember it from last year. We were talking about a little bit in the office today. Newcastle, McCutcheon, Providence, Dwinger, all there. It'll be really Dwinger's first big test. They're off to a good start after the quarantine start, and it'll be fun to see them and to see McCutcheon kind of getting back in the flow after having a week of volleyball.
Well, you got to watch, Newcastle, coming off of a week where you go Saturday to Saturday, basically. You're coming off of a week where they lost more matches in 1 week than they did in the last season.
Yes.
Or two. And they're reeling a little bit, and they're going to have to get the boat righted, and I think it will. McCutcheon just got out of camp COVID. Last night it was their first match since August, and they've been shut down for quite a while. And that's a really good team. Shondell running the show, and that's a good bloodline to have as your quarterback. And Chacon's a good person to have out there tossing the ball to. And that McCutcheon team is capable. I've said it all year long, capable of giving anybody fits if they're allowed to play. Providence, up and down. I think that Horning's ankle, people don't understand. Just because a kid's back doesn't mean they're back.
Yeah.
That kid's probably still at 70%. Horning's a huge part of that offense. And you see a little bit of inconsistency because of that. I think that team is still one of the teams I said a couple of weeks ago as a dark horse. I like that little group.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to be a good test for them. And as you referenced, Hudson and the gang out of Winger, this weekend will go further in dictating how people view them than any other weekend of the season. This is tall grass for Dwinger, and for Dwinger, just being around Newcastle, it probably gives him PTSDs because for 2 years that's who gunned them down in two of the best matches in the state tournament every year. But that Dwinger team is talented, and we'll see.
Yep. Then Monday night, got a good one. Trish and the crew, Concordia, is going to head over to Belmont. Belmont's got a couple wins under their belts now, coming back from that first. They actually didn't start until September 1, if you remember. So they're just kind of getting rolling. Should be a good little battle. I know the bro is really good at Concordia. Tiana was talking about those guys. She said they have the potential to be really good.
To both teams will have great back row play, and to both teams are extremely well coached. I don't know if there's, on that night, I don't know if there'll be two better coaches in the state going at it. I mean, and they're longtime rivals. For the longest time, whoever was the best team out of those two is the best team out of that area. It should be fun, and it's at the Kroll Dome in Belmont, so that should be a neat event. It's a lot of intensity, great passion, coach-wise. It's that would be a fun match to watch.
Yep. Then Tuesday night, the reason why I threw this one down, LaPorte has had their hand in taking down some of the big teams up north. They get Crown Points, and Crown Point is really, like you said, had a good stretch here, about 8 or 9 straight wins. That should be a good game next Tuesday.
It's like the kind of like the SEC volleyball schedule or some of the schedules that are coming out. In the north, it seems like every week one of these teams is playing each other.
Yep.
I mean, they played each other a lot. I think Munster's played seemingly everybody up there, some of them twice already. Crown Point LaPorte will be a huge game because both those teams are teams that, I don't know, you got to start to whisper that there's a team from the north end of the state that's going to be capable of winning this thing.
Yep.
And
hiding the tall grass.
Yeah, and they're always athletic and they're always well coached. And this is probably as much noise as he made early. And like I said, for some ungodly reason, they have played almost their regular schedule.
Yep.
They're, and let's just hope to God that this stuff is starting to dissipate and move on. But, those guys up north have had the opportunity and the blessing. The blessing. You ask the McCutcheons of the world, the Dwingers of the world, the Yorktowns of the world. It has been really hard for these kids. The guys up north have had the blessing of getting to play. So that should be a great showdown. Both teams are hitting their stride.
Yep. We'll get to the next part of the year. We're going to talk about James back for fiction. Okay. So going a little bit different here. I'm going to throw out a couple things.
Okay.
Fact or fiction? Quarantine's kind of made this, really is making it a very roller coaster kind of year. I mean, up and down, just with the inconsistencies.
Well, 100% fact.
Yeah.
I think that the quarantines a little bit. I think the uncertainty. I think that, these kids, hell, they used to get up and they knew their whole schedule like the back of their hand. Now it could be Tuesday morning. You're not sure you're playing Tuesday night. It could be Thursday morning, you're not only not sure you got got a match that night, you're not sure you're going to stay in school. The uncertainty is kind of wearing and kind of showing. The quarantines, without a doubt, are creating inconsistency as well. I think the combination of those two are creating some inconsistencies. I think the other thing that people don't realize, these kids work hard. You heard Ellie Stinson a couple weeks ago on the call-in talking about, she just got in great shape during their quarantine. There's a difference between working hard and competing. Working hard, is a very simple thing to do. Somebody can stand over you and make you work hard. You have to have somebody to go against to compete.
Yep.
And so what's also happening is these kids, their only competition for some of these high school teams has been their JV teams.
Yeah.
I think they're really lacking in being able to compete. Then you throw on top of that the number of games, big games. Now I know that like HSE is rescheduling the Mud Sock rivalry, and some of these games is Yorktown lost out on a couple of big matches and
yes.
that didn't get played. If those games go by the wayside, that hurts. And consistency is built in fire, and fire comes only from great matches.
Yep.
So that is a fact. The quarantine, the whole COVID thing is mucking up the works.
It is.
And I use muck lightly. I've had it with COVID. I'm done.
Yep. Second one, 2A state final this year. Do we see the rematch? Fact or fiction? Heritage Christian taking on Wapahani.
Yeah, I think you do. I'm going fact there too. That's, it's awful early for you to force my hand on state championship games.
But those two have had a great start to the year.
Yeah, and I hope that if they're watching, they immediately go into the bubble so that they stay safe and I look like I know what I'm talking about. Both those teams are well set teams. They've got setters that have experience on a big stage. Both those teams have, a couple of big swingers. I think that probably if I had to grade it out, I would think Wapahani's better in the back 20. I think that Heritage Christian's better in the front 10. I think the two setters are fantastic little ball players. And I think that'll get both of those teams back there. How that goes, we'll talk about that another time. But I really do feel that Heritage Christian and Wapahani are the best two teams in those classes.
We just talked a little bit about them earlier. Is this the year? It's 2020, the year that Dwenger gets to the big dance, the 3A state championship. Fact or fiction?
What is? Is that a good thing for Dwenger? I mean, do you want 2020 attached to your waist for the rest of life? I mean, 2020 is, it's been probably the worst year ever for a lot of people. Does Dwenger get to the big dance in 2020? I think fact.
Yeah.
I do. They've got to play some matches. We'll know more after this weekend. If you'd asked me that question next week, I think I'd probably had a better answer. I do know they've got some very talented kids. They're well coached. When I talk about being seasoned, Heritage Christian and Wapahani were on the big stage last year, but Dwenger's played some big matches. I referenced earlier the Newcastle Wars. Last year was the only year where I thought they got picked off and shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
I thought
surprised with the Angola.
Yeah, I thought they should have probably got through Angola, but Angola was a very good team, and as well-coached team as there is in the state. I thought Dwenger, that was an upset. I thought Dwenger was on the verge of beating Newcastle twice, and Newcastle went on to roll through the state championships. Dwenger team is due. I'll be really honest, they probably deserve one. And I think that they've got the talent to get there. I'm going to go fact.
Okay. That last one here, we'll go another fact or fiction. We're going to talk about 4A. Is this the year that a northern team wins the state championship? And I'm talking a proportion of the state, not talking because, nowadays, the Muncie Central goes south for some reason. I don't know where that even math-wise even makes sense. But I'm talking the Crown Points, the Munsters, the LaPortes, McCutcheon.
True North.
Yes.
I go fiction. I think that still, HSE is the northern team. Yes.
Yes.
Fisher's the northern team.
Yes.
I just think that HSE is awfully good.
Yeah.
And I may be wrong. I remember a couple years ago, Crown Point shocked the heck out of the Yorktown people with an incredibly gifted athletic team that played big at the net.
It could have maybe won that if Chacon doesn't go down.
Chacon doesn't get hurt.
I mean, she was off to a great start.
No, Chacon doesn't get hurt. Maybe they get Avon. I don't know. Great team that year, and I think that one of these teams up there, maybe it's Munster. Munster's the team that's kind of got my attention right now. I think that those guys could make a run, a big run, but to get through whoever wins HSE's sectional is going to take a task. I'll go fiction. Don't hold me to that. Yeah. That's what I'm going.
Yeah, Munster, you talked about kid's going to be going to Iowa. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Mm-hmm. They also have a kid going to Auburn. Of course. I mean, that's two of your contacts on a daily basis. So
you got two D1 kids taking care of your second and third contact. Yeah. I mean, that's where people win, as long as they can take care. But the biggest part of this thing is taking care of the first contact. Yeah. First and third contact. We got to have somebody to dish the rock. But, they've got 2/3 of the puzzle, and they've got a solid setter. So Munster's in the hunt. Yep. It's just, sometimes kids have to go to the back row. The rules suck. Yeah. But, do they have guys that can play every rotation and terminate? That's going to be the big question. And really, it's one of the reasons that HSE right now continues to stand tall.
Yep. All right. Any questions from the old crowd?
Got a question. With it being such a weird year, how hard will it be for them to decide the Gatorade Player of the Year this year? With stats being maybe a little skewed because of quarantines and no matches, how difficult or how true will the Gatorade Player of the Year be?
Wow.
That's a great point. I mean, if you think about it, not just in the volleyball aspect, but think about college football and everything else like that. I mean, how could you make a great call on that or the correct call? I think it'd be really difficult.
I think a couple of things, and I've been blessed. I've had more Gatorade Player of the Years play for me than anybody else in the state. I think in a year like this, they'll rely a lot on history. What the kid has done over the last couple of years. They'll rely an awful lot on where that team places. I think more than ever at the end of the year, who wins is going to have a real edge there. I don't think that they'll be as stat laden as before.
Yeah.
I think that will become kind of a secondary thing. But I really do believe that the history of the kid and the finish of the team are going to be really critical. I think that it'll be a Gatorade Player of the Year that you'll argue, and there will be some controversy to it, probably more than before because of the unevenness of schedules and everything else. But I think that's an interesting question. I think it's one of those things that's going to be affected by COVID.
Yeah, like you just talked about. I mean, you're looking at like an Ellie Stinson.
If Yorktown wins, Ellie Stinson's got a big time shot.
Yeah, or if it's the other way, Mabry Schaffmaster and the crew wins, then she's
you still don't remember HSE's in this mix. Too. And then there's also 3A. If Winger wins, does Hudson get a shot at it?
Or Raven at 2A.
Raven Colvin at 2A. Snyder at 2A.
Yep.
There's an awful lot of kids. A couple of kids at 1A. I mean, maybe it's a year where they shock the world and they pick one of these smaller school kids.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yep. Got any other ones?
That's it for now.
Hold on. All right, going to talk about the next thing, and the next thing on our list is top player.
Just to give Mermaid Pools a plug, those guys are having a record-breaking year. COVID has been very kind to the pool business. If you wanted to get a pool put in with those guys, put it in right now, they probably aren't going to get it done until winter of 2021.
Correct.
They're that backed up. Evidently getting stuck in your house for about 4 months made people realize that we need other things. That and ping pong tables are gone.
Ping pong tables?
Yeah, so just, you heard it here first. But Mermaid Pools, proud sponsor, and those guys are absolutely killing it. It's good to see somebody killing it.
Yeah. First one.
Yeah, all juniors, not in any particular order. There's several of these guys.
Just trying to spice it up.
Yeah.
Some different things.
Emma Halter, I talked about her last week. Little libero out of Roncalli. Spectacular player. Spectacular. if you've gotten a chance to see her, you know this. If you haven't, trust me, you're heading to the University of Texas. And University of Texas historically has had ball control issues.
Yep.
And this young lady is spirited, she's feisty, but she does take care of the ball. Really one of the reasons Roncalli has been able to
take down Providence.
Take down a couple of teams. I mean, they're going to be in the game because of her. But Emma Halter, fantastic player.
49 aces, 37 assists last year. The one thing I was looking at is kind of crazy. 766 digs last year. And also, as a freshman, she had 766 digs on the season.
Well, if she pulls off 766 in the COVID era, you know, and that's one of the things you look at it record-wise. I mean, you're talking about a young lady that's going to crush the record books.
Correct.
And Roncalli has had a history. It's one of the probably 10 most historic volleyball programs in the state of Indiana.
We talked about the Mount Rushmore last season.
Yeah, they're a great program, and Emma Halter is simply a great player. You know, I hope she gets 766 again this year because it means that we had somewhat of a complete year. But Emma Halter, great player, and I wish I could tell you to go out and see her. That's one of the things that really stinks about this.
Yeah. Second one,
Katie Iganoff, out of Center Grove. Mrs. MJ Hamill a little bit. They went to Wisconsin. But Katie Iganoff is a kid that I don't think has touched the surface yet. You know, she's still uncommitted. But I think that this is a kid that's going to explode.
Yep.
Very athletic. I think that's one of the things you see. Good sized body. That's one of the things you see. But a phenomenal work ethic. You know, and a great competitor. You know, like I said earlier, it's easy to make people work hard. It's not easy to develop competitors. And, you know, to make somebody a competitor, we can move the needle a little bit as coaches, but either you have it or you don't. This kid has it. And Katie Iganoff, I think, is going to be a big-time pin for somebody.
Yeah.
And I think that her work ethic will prove true. But Katie Iganoff, a great player out of Center Grove.
Well, and she's very new to the game still. She's only been doing it for a couple of years. Yep. Kind of reminds me of some of the kids you've had in the past, like the Megan Campbells of Ohio, and some of those kids are just great athletes starting to figure it out as they get going. All right, next on the list, we just talked about the school.
Yeah, Haley Melby out of Munster heading to Iowa. That's a great get for them. You know, this team is real. You know, as we keep looking at Crown Point and Penn and LaPorte.
I'd really like to go watch them.
Yeah,
fun game.
They've got, like I said, the first and third contact are taken care of, and in the high school game, if you can take care of those two, you're going to win 60%, 70% of your games. So these guys are winning much better, more than that.
Oh yeah.
And I think that Haley Melby is one of the reasons why she's a force at the net. And you look at her numbers, you know, they speak for themselves.
Yep. Last year, 312 kills, 3 aces, 31 blocks, 218 digs. And her stats are already taken off now just because she is one of the teams that's actually gotten to play a lot. I mean, she'll crush those numbers this year, hopefully.
She will.
And next on the list, we talked about her a little bit, the Pride of Fort Wayne.
Hudson may not be able to meet her numbers from last year, seeing that they play once every 2 weeks. But Eva Hudson and Winger just committed to Notre Dame. A lot like Iganoff in a sense that I think her ceiling is crazy high. I don't think she knows how good she could be yet. And with a lot of these young ladies, that's really a big key. I sometimes wish that they could see what I see when they look in the mirror at themselves, because she's one of those kids that I think really could be spectacular as we move forward. And, you know, and our state's full of these guys that know they're good but don't realize they could be great. And I don't think they know that they're as good as they really are. You know, whether it's Hudson or Iganoff or a Harden or a Phillips, there's a lot of really good kids out there that, you know, with a little bit of seasoning, with a little bit of confidence, can explode. And I think the next couple of years are going to do that for Hudson at Winger and the Notre Dame commit for Mike Johnson.
Yeah, and think about this weekend. That'll be fun watching Hudson, Shaftmaster, Hording, and Chacon going at it this weekend.
Oh yeah, that would, once again, you know, you look at it and you're going, you know, you look at that, I could take Hudson, Shaftmaster, Chacon, Hornig, and Chacon, and you know, and put together a really solid college team.
Oh yeah.
Those guys, you look at it, Shaftmaster's going to the ACC. Chacon is probably destined for the Big Ten or wherever she wants to go. Hornig's going to the Big Ten. Hudson, ACC. These guys are Power 5 guys. I take those 4 guys and figure it out. I could win with those, and that would be a ticket worth buying. Those guys all banging. But
oh, yeah.
Hudson, great little player.
Yeah, 52 aces, 385 kills last year, 237 digs, and 33 blocks.
Yeah.
Last, uncommitted little setter.
Ella Bostic. Ella Bostic really shocked me this summer. No kid developed more than COVID than anybody other than her. No one better than her. I believe that in every dark moment there are seeds that are opportunity. And this young lady, you can tell she spent a ton of time on her hands. Right before COVID hit her, she was really struggling a little bit of hand contact. After COVID, she was silk. She was smooth. And I like her willingness to make tough sets. I like her ability to stay even keel regardless of the scenario. I believe the most improved setter in the state of Indiana. And, a lot of these high schools, indoor clubs will take credit for the improvement. I'm telling you, Ella Bostic improved herself over quarantine. And that's really what it should have been about. You should have came out of quarantine better than what you went into it. You either get better or you get bitter. And the majority of people got bitter and wanted to complain about quarantine. This kid absolutely attacked quarantine. And one of the best young setters in the state, very underrated, uncommitted still, will play Division I volleyball and will play at a high level, and she will be very good.
Yep. And what was crazy is last year, I know she was in the setting role, but I thought what really jumped out, 167 digs defensively, 30 aces and 526 assists on the year.
I think defense is where she can improve the most.
Yep.
So that's a pretty telling sign.
Yep. All right, head to the old questions here before we get into the phone zone here in a second.
Question: how much will the more seasoned team be in the state championship this year be a factor? Whether it be been there before or the more senior loaded teams, how big of a factor will that be?
Been there before is huge. You know how to walk out. You know which runway to go through. You don't freak out over little things. I remember, in our run where we were back to back and, we knew everything. In the national championships, it's a great thing for us because we're always in it. And, I know exactly what they're going to do. I know how we're marching in. I know how they're going to announce things. I know what the TV's going to do. I know what the TV timeout looks like. I'm versed. You're calm. You're in your element. So being there is a big deal. The guys that went once, you'll see when you go a second time. First time, you're too freaked out to know what was going on.
Yep.
I think it is big. I think the other place where it's going to come into play is seasoned as in this season. Who gets to play the most and who gets to play the most big matches? I would rather lose 6 big matches right now than be undefeated. I would because I want to play. I want to get out and play. Some of these guys haven't played a soul. We're talking about a Dwinger team that's undefeated that really hasn't been tested.
McCutcheon in 2 months.
McCutcheon's only played 4 matches in 2 months. So I don't know. And you look, HSE, hasn't been tested.
No.
They missed the Newcastle match. They missed the Yorktown match. They missed the Fishers match. They haven't been tested. I would rather go through this thing and get, whacked around a little bit like those teams up north are right now.
Yep.
And gain seasoning that way. And then your last question was a very good one. Seniors are hard to beat. I said that a couple years ago with Providence and the Horning sisters. Sisters, one's a senior. They don't want to separate anyhow. Shaftmasters last year. It's just tough to beat kids that are hanging on. But think about these guys. These guys have had everything taken from them over the last year and a half.
Yep.
Seniors this year, they want something normal. And I'm telling you right now, seniors aren't going to give up without a fight. You saw Ellie Stinson declares to be home in a virtual school. Doesn't want to even run the risk of getting sick and missing a game.
Yeah, had to go back and do all our homework again.
Started to do the 3 weeks over again. The seniors are hungry and seniors are hard to beat. So I think that seasoning is going to be a real factor this year.
Yeah, and another thing, like you just talked about with speaking of Ellie the other week, is you said you were very appreciative of what you have at that point, and that's going to be the thing too, is knowing that at any moment this could have ended. Thank God we got here. Let's make sure we end it the right way. So.
Appreciative is a good way to put it.
Yep. All right, gonna get in the old phone zone. No idea who it is.
Hello.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Hi.
Sarah Roush actually has cell signal. We're going to
for
hit
now.
Sarah Roush, two-time national champion, two-time state champion at Newcastle. Going to hit her with a couple of questions. Randy was just talking about gratitude, and I'm going to get into your gratitude for the time you spent at Newcastle, and maybe a little of your gratitude now that you're kind of a full-time mom and not doing the high school thing anymore. You went to the game last night.
Yep.
Newcastle, Yorktown. What'd you see?
I was very proud of Mabry and her composure and how she was handling things. She looks and seems to be being a better teammate than she ever has before, so that makes me excited for her and for the future of the season of Newcastle, because if she can just bring everybody along with her, then they'll have a much better outcome. I saw that the most mistakes I've ever seen a Yorktown team play, so I wouldn't count them out just yet because I know they'll clean that up a lot as the season gets going forward.
Those mistakes, how much, we talked earlier about quarantine and the inconsistency in the high school game right now. How much do you put that on the quarantine, or is it just a young group of players?
I think it's a mixture of both. Both teams have young setters that haven't had a lot of exposure, so they're not always making the best decisions. And the serving was kind of alarming because there were a lot of errors, and when they weren't errors, both teams weren't able to run the middle, so that's never a good thing. And that's probably because they haven't had a chance to play a lot of matches.
Can either one of those teams beat HSE?
I think so. I think that,
Wow.
the defense of Yorktown is just going to keep getting better and better, and Steph's not going to let them back down. And there's a little bit of edge that Newcastle would have over HSC because they've just beaten them in the past, and now that Mabry's becoming a better teammate, I think that it'll be something to look out for.
Wow. Favorite Newcastle moment?
Probably, I loved it. We did a day of caring all the time, and it was super fun. The whole community came out together, and we didn't worry about volleyball. We all just kind of got to know each other a little better. So probably day of caring.
Wow. I didn't expect that. That's a good answer. Really good
Thanks.
answer. You're welcome. You're welcome. Caught me off guard there. Favorite thing about not coaching this year?
Probably the inconsistency of the schedule and the practices and having to take 2 weeks off, because in volleyball you take 2 weeks off without passing the ball or serving a ball, and it shows a lot. And I think that we saw that in the game last night.
Yeah, I think that you probably picked a good year to get out of it. This is going to be I think somebody's going to win a state championship, but it's going to be well earned, and I think the wear and tear is going to be a bit much. If you were Jason Young, last question. If you were Jason Young, what advice would you give Jason Young right now, knowing that he's in the same seat you were last year, kind of the hot seat where, one of the things I've always thought that you've done very, very well as a coach is you've taken some teams that had high expectations, but it's easy to take a team with great expectations and ruin it. I would argue that it's harder to coach a team that's expected to win than it is to go the other way. And you've taken a couple of teams that everybody thought it was a foregone conclusion, that it was a done deal, you were going to win. And if you lost, you were the worst coach in the world. What would you tell Jason Young right now, knowing what you went through? What bit of advice would you give him?
Definitely do not read the headlines. Do not read any of that stuff or the stats, and make sure your players aren't either, because the moment you turn your back on anything, you'll get taken out by anyone. The thing about it is you got to focus on the small little things every single day at practice, regardless of the level of your team. That's the thing, is you don't want to change the way you're coaching or your expectations just because you have good players. You got to make sure you're holding them all to that higher standard every single time. And it gets hard, and it gets hard to deal with them because they think that they're above it, and you just got to make sure that you're on the same page with what you want.
No, that's a great answer. That's a great answer. Well, good news. Your Verizon held out.
It's surprising. As much as I pay for this,
I know.
Be a little bit better.
I know. Well, we'll get home to those boys and we'll talk. We'll talk tomorrow. See ya.
All right. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Good advice. That is really good advice. You know, when you talk about don't read headlines, you'd be amazed at how much stats, whether they're stats in the paper or they're stats from a manager or stats from a parent in the stands, how much division that stuff starts to create. Am I getting enough sets? Why am I not? Because everybody starts thinking about theirs. It is very difficult as a coach when you have an all-star type team, HSE or Newcastle's team of the past, to keep everybody grounded in the right place. And you know, for athletes in today's world, I think that's a great lesson. That was a great comment that Sarah threw out there. Yeah. Good stuff.
All right, going to go ahead and get into our rankings. We're going to go ahead and talk about some honorable mentions. I mean, we threw a few in there.
Yeah, well, I keep Heritage Christian there, even though, you know, the Pioneer win is a big win. That's a good win.
Yeah.
That's a really good win for Heritage Christian, 15-0. They're at the top of my honorable mention. Still trying to push those guys to the top 10. Love Coleman, love Snyder, love what they do, love the pin. A little outside hitter, I believe it's Phillips, a bomber. I really like that Heritage Christian team. The others that I have up there, Penn.
Yep.
Now Penn's good. Penn got, you know, bounced around by Fishers in Newcastle, and there's no shame in that. It is what it is. I keep them at the honorable mention spot at 15-3. And then I go Castle. They're 13-0 as well. You know,
they beat the Brownsburg team.
Yeah, you look at Heritage Christian, and those two teams are good 28-0. We got probably 4 teams in our top 10 that haven't played, but those 4 teams combined haven't played 28 matches. So, you know, they're getting that seasoning that Josh asking the question.
Yeah.
They're getting that seasoning that's necessary. Both those teams are. And, you know what, I can tell you right now, winning's winning. Winning's winning. And you got to practice winning. And the only way to learn is to practice. And the only way to get to where you got to go is to practice. And both those teams are doing it. But Penn, Heritage Christian, Castle are right on the verge for me.
All very good teams.
Yeah.
Number 10, got a tie?
Yeah, I can't break them apart. I can't really move Bloomington South up yet. Good win against Franklin Community. Takes down Terre Haute South, but I like what they're doing. They're 13-1. Just keep winning, and you'll move. I got a lot of talent there. They're solid. They're solid. Crown Point, I put back at 10, even though we dropped them out a couple of weeks ago. I like them. Yeah. I've always been a fan of what they do. I've always been a fan of what they do athletically. You know, and they put together a run. You know, they had one weekend, a bad hiccup weekend. But, you know, Fishers had a bad hiccup weekend. They lost a couple of times. Newcastle lost multiple times. Wow. Providence lost multiple times a couple of, you know, everybody's having these hiccups. And so I moved Crown Point back up.
I agree. Like you said, they really have started putting together as of late. Number 9.
LaPorte. You know, you're getting a real strong North flavor out of me for probably the most ever. You know, I really like it. Once again, they're playing. They're 15-2.
They proved themselves.
Yeah, they're playing. We got a body of work that we can deal with. You know, their only loss this week was to Munster.
Yeah.
You know, and Munster is becoming the monster of that area.
Yep.
They're very solid. So LaPorte's my number 9.
Yep. All right, number 8. We just talked about
Munster.
Yep.
19-2. They took down, you know, Concordia is always a good win. And, you know, you could look and say, well, is Concordia who they were when they had Tiana Williams? No, there's only one Tiana Williams. But is Concordia still going to be well coached as well as anybody in the state? Is Concordia going to compete? If you ever watched the lady coach, I mean, they're going to compete their asses off.
Yeah.
They got good ball control. They got good back row play. You know, that's a good win for a Munster team.
Yeah.
You know, anytime you can go in, especially in this day and age, and get that, that's a good win. You know, keep this in mind. Maybe the only team in the state of Indiana with 20-plus matches under their belt. That's an amazing stat.
It is.
They may be the only team in the state of Indiana with 20-plus matches.
Yep.
And with the way things are going, they could be the only team at the end of the season with 20-plus.
Yep.
You know, if we just keep going this way.
Very true.
You know, look at McCutcheon right now. McCutcheon goes through one more COVID. McCutcheon may not have a team, may not be able to play in sectionals.
Yes.
You look at
I
that.
mean, even if they do finish out their year, they're probably looking at less than 20 matches in the year.
Yes.
I mean,
all
if
the
they
way
go
through. All the way through.
Through November.
McCutcheon goes all the way to the state championship. The likelihood of them having less matches than Munster has right now is huge.
Yeah.
And so 21 matches, that is huge, and I think it's going to bode well for these guys. They're my number 8.
Yep. All right, number 7.
Fishers, you know, a little up and down. You know, a lot of the people that are talking, coaches are talking that those guys, you know, chemistry-wise are getting after each other a little bit. That, girls, come on. What are we doing here? You know, my biggest hope was that out of the COVID era, that the blessing and the gift would be gratitude. Gratitude to play the game. Gratitude to be with one another. Gratitude to be on the court together. What is there to have chemistry issues about? You know, you heard Sarah, and her number one compliment for that match was that Mabry Schaffmaster was such a great teammate. You know, that's what I really anticipated coming from this.
Yep.
You know, at the end of the day, it's a game. And chemistry should not hurt any team in the state of Indiana this year, or in the country, to be honest. Chemistry should be our strong point. Chemistry, let's be honest. You know, if you want me to get off on a political avenue here, you know, we should all be enduring and enjoying chemistry right now.
Yep.
As a country, we should be having chemistry. We should show grace. We should worry about gratitude. We should embrace opportunity. We should care a little bit more about each other. How in the hell do we have chemistry issues in the country after what we've been through? How do we have chemistry issues on the volleyball team after what we've been through? These guys have got to get it squared away. Too much talent, too well coached. You haven't heard the last
of seniors.
Yeah, a ton of seniors. The things that we talked about. They're very athletic. They're 11-3. They got beat by a good Brownsburg team that has been this all season long. They got beat by a Newcastle team. Newcastle is going to beat a lot of people this year based on who Newcastle is, but also who Newcastle was. And you come into that match, you're a little edgy because of it, and Newcastle gets a jump on them. But Fishers is still a team to watch out for, and the Mudsock is coming up on the 29th. We'll see more then. Get it straightened up, and let's get it going.
Yep, 6.
Newcastle. Lost to Brownsburg, and then lost to Yorktown. Set 4 was the only bad set. A setter got hurt in that set. That could have a little something to do with it. But Yorktown, just like I said, they just wear people down. And Newcastle hasn't had a chance to play a good team for 5 sets. You know, they got taken 5 by Westfield. I think they go the distance with Greenfield Central. Yeah. You know, but Westfield is not Yorktown. Greenfield Central is not Yorktown. When you're playing against a good team, I said earlier, you got to learn how to play harder, longer. And when I'm saying play harder, longer, I'm not talking physical. I'm talking mental. It just wears your butt out. And that's what Yorktown does, and that's what Yorktown did. This Newcastle team, a couple losses this week, you know, that's a tough run for those guys. They lose 2 or 3 times in a week. Doesn't happen to them very often.
Yep.
But I will tell you that Newcastle is far from over. You heard Sarah Roush talking about it. That team has the potential to do a lot of damage, and I'm one of the top 3 offensive teams in the state, if not one of the best in the country. They got to rectify the ball control issues, and they got to get a good set of hands on the second ball.
Yep. Number 5, 4 total matches.
At 2-2. At 2-2, we got.
They're in action tonight. They can get over that 500.
Center Grove, yeah, they're battling against a good Center Grove team, which will be a good test for this McCutcheon team. And McCutcheon's got a very young setter, and so every big match she can play in is important. The bad news is, little Shondell hasn't had a chance to play in a lot of those big matches because they've been in Camp COVID for what seems like an eternity. But when you got Chacon and some of those other guys banging away for you, I think that she's going to learn quickly, and I think the faster she learns, the better this team's going to get. And I believe they're still one of the best teams in the state of Indiana, even though no one's seen them.
Yep. Number 4, back up.
Providence. They Columbus East, Jasper, Carmel. 3, blue-collar wins for them.
Yep.
But, they got to get back into a rhythm. And they'll get into a rhythm. Everybody's throwing dirt on Providence. They're 11-2, for God's sakes. Hornig, like I said, has got to get healthy. When she gets healthy, they're very well set. They're very well coached. They have a good senior balance. That team is going to be tough to beat, and I wouldn't look past them. Like I said, you heard Sarah Rouse say it. Anybody can get anybody.
Very true. Number 3.
Dwinger.
Highest ever.
Highest ever. Actually played some matches. They play East Noble tonight. They beat Lures. They're 7-0. Haven't played a ton, but they're very talented. And
will be tested this weekend.
And they're going to have a huge test. If they're still at 3 after this weekend, then that weekend with Newcastle, McCutcheon, and Providence. And you ask me that fact or fiction question again. Is this Dwinger's year? I'm going to tell you, hell yes. If they're still at 3 next week, they're the real deal.
Yeah, you take down all those guys, they might be up in the 1 or 2 at that point.
They're the real deal if that happens. So, I hope it does. No one's more deserving than those guys. Dwinger 3.
Yep. Number 2.
I thought long and hard last night at going with 2 1s. I was going to get rid of 2 and just have tie for first. Yorktown wasn't as clean as I anticipated. And I think that Yorktown's going to have to, if they're going to beat HSE, they're going to have to be ultra clean. They cannot make errors, as Sarah Roush alluded to. They cannot be up and down. The defense has got to be stellar. They're never going to produce enough offensive pop to match an HSE. They're going to have to come up with some defensive fireworks, and they're going to have to be squeaky clean. Squeaky clean, and more clean than any Yorktown team has ever had to be before. This team has to be. And for that matter, I'm not putting them with HSE. I'm going to keep them at 2. They're obviously better than 3, but they're not 1 right now. Even though you said it's a done deal, and I know that probably create some ratings wars for us, but I'm just going to tell you.
I get where you're going with that. I agree that Yorktown has got a little bit of learning and bumping and bruising and getting through that stuff. But November's a long ways away, Coach J. That's all I gotta say.
Coach J. Oh boy.
Number 1.
HSE. HSE, best team in the state. They're presently in Camp COVID, doing s'mores probably tonight and whatever we do in Camp COVID. It's unfortunate that this continues to happen and continues to go on because we're missing things. I know that Jason is rescheduling the Fishers game, which he needs some barometers. I said that earlier. I would rather lose matches right now and get a feel for who I am than not play those matches. And so for him, he's got to play matches. But he's the hardened kid. He's got to learn. She's got to be in tough matches. She's going to be great. I think
she's young.
No, she's going to be fantastic. She's got all the variables necessary. But she needs to compete. I know she works hard, but we need to compete. And work hard is something people tell us to do. Competing is something we do. And I think that she needs to get that opportunity. Lovey Wallace needs to get that opportunity. That whole team needs the opportunity to compete. And I think when they get to compete and they get to compete on a regular basis, I don't know. I don't know if anybody catches them. I'm telling you right now, they're the best team in the state of Indiana. Before I had questions, 1, 2, and 3. I got questions at 1 and 2 right now, but I'm really I'm comfortable with my pick at 1. I know that you're not, but that's why it's a show.
It is.
Well, I guess that does it, folks. Stay healthy. Wear your mask. Wear your mask by all means. Wear your mask. It seems to really be working. Um, I just think that we got to keep battling, win each day, find a way to get better, and compete. One thing that we've lost society-wise is the will to compete, because this is kind of taking it out of us. Compete with COVID, compete with excellence, compete with great, and let's get better. Let's get better, and I'll see you next week.